My name is George Ransom. I'm a member of the Walpole Historic Commission, also a member of the Walpole Historic Society. We're here at Walpole Cable Media TV today, joined by our colleague Christine Cochrane. She'll tell us a little bit about herself now.
Hi George, yes, Christine Cochrane. I am a resident of Walpole for over 30 years. I am a member of the Walpole Reuse Committee and the Vice Chair of the Walpole Historical Commission here in Walpole.
Glad to have you here. Today we're going to be talking, and we have some slides to show you a little bit about the history of the Walpole Town Hall, and as many of you know, it's a building that's on the National Register of Historic Places. We'll have a chance to see the inside. Christine took a number of the photos.
I did with Mr. Roger Turner. We took a tour of the building and took some interior shots of how it, the existing conditions right now.
All right, so can we see some of the slides now, Christine?
So this is just an aerial provided by Mr. Richard Pilar. He is the chairman of the Reuse Committee. It just shows how the town hall is a center focal point of the town and pretty much the flagship as you come into the center of town. Thank
you. All right, a little bit of background on the history. Walpole, it is on Main Street, and it is a brick structure designed by a local famous architect who designed another building in Walpole. I'll talk a little bit about it later, but it's John William Beale. It was completed in 1881, well over 100 years, and when I first came to Walpole as a resident, that was the first historical experience I saw, was the 100-year celebration of the town hall, and I had a chance to tour the inside. My guess is nowadays there aren't as many opportunities to go into the town of the old town hall because it's currently used as a police station. It has a number of predominant elements on it in terms of a 70-foot clock tower, there's a bell tower, and a lot of the residents has had many experiences over the years with events and social events there in the town hall. Next slide. Here's another view of the Walpole Town Hall taken a number of years ago.
What's interesting about this slide is you can see that the front steps there are no steps. At the opening, the road goes right up to the front entrance, which is nice. It gives a little better access there.
In the background on the right, you can see the old stone school for those of us who've been here a number of years. And on the left, you can see the barn where the horses were housed to take the fire apparatus out of the back of the old town hall, which we'll see a little bit later. Next slide, please. So here we see a classic view of town hall taken during the 250th town anniversary of Walpole. The most prominent feature of the town hall is the 70-foot bell and clock tower. The clock tower is still running, it's accurate, and somehow there seemed a mystery of what happened to the town bell. Nobody seems to know at this point. The bell is missing, and we have no recollection of where it was. Next slide, please.
That's just the Stone Street side view. You can see the top floor, those tall windows, that used to be a big, very open banquet, like a hall where they had many events. Nowadays, the windows are cut in half because they've added a drop ceiling.
So a little bit about the background of the town hall. Originally it was called the Townhouse, as I've been told by Roger Turner, the historic architect and the archivist of Walpole Historic Society and a member of the Walpole Historic Commission. Also, it celebrated many local events here in Walpole. The Civil War ceremonies were there, and it housed the Civil War memorial plaques of members of the town who were engaged in the Civil War conflict. Probably very difficult to move those.
Right, and that's been discussed a lot. I mean, people have said we can move them, but it'd be very delicate operations as not to damage them at all. I believe we do have another picture coming up.
Right, next slide.
Those.
Thank you. This is an east side view next to the where the Mexican restaurant is, and the only thing that's changed on the outside is a egress route via the staircase for the second floor in case of a fire. A little bit about how the town hall was used over the years. It was a dance hall, so when it was first opened, it was a dance hall that housed many social events. There's a chorus group that met in there. We have a chance to understand that there was a high school graduation a number of years there in 1904. 1905, Walpole High School had their graduation ceremony there in the town hall, along with other events.
It was definitely the hub of the town.
And it still is.
It is.
Next slide, please. So here you see a front view of the town and a little bit on architecture. The building exhibits a classic revival and Romanesque elements. As I said earlier, it has a 70-foot clock tower with the two roofs identified, entrances under a large opening where there is a brownstone opening. Next slide. Here's a side view. You can see along the way we have the stone wall that's been erected there as a boundary.
Right today they don't use that front entrance. You need to enter the building from the back side.
Okay. Next slide. So here is almost a picture postcard view of the Walpole Town Hall. And as you can see, it prominently is one of the tallest buildings in Walpole. Along with some of the other items we mentioned earlier, right now most of us realize that the town hall has been closed to town business. Town business moved over to the school, and now we have the police station house there. Years ago, there was the fire apparatus that we'll see where they were housed in the back of the town hall. Walpole's first movie was presented in the town hall. The Coronet Club, which was a pretty big and noted group that performed around the state, performed there, along with many other social and historic events took place there.
The courthouse was there.
So it functioned as a courthouse, and I'm even told from some of the policemen that the upstairs was a target range.
Yes.
It's hard to believe, but
it is hard to believe. Yes. It's evident too. If you go up there, you can see bullet holes in the back side.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So. Thank you. All right. So what else do we have? Do we have the next slide, please?
So this building is on the National Register of Historic Places. So it is recognized as an historic building. The reason the reuse committee is so important is to figure out a viable way to keep this a very viable, useful building and part of the town.
I know you're on the reuse committee. Can you tell us a little bit about what they've been doing and what we hope to have as an outcome of the reuse committee?
Well, the selectmen appointed the reuse committee at the beginning of the year. We've been meeting once a month. We are going to start meeting twice a month. Our meetings are open to the public and are posted. We have reached out and had some more citizen input meetings, which have been, successful. Would be nice to see some more citizens involved.
What were some of the ideas they came up with?
Some of them are interesting. A lot of them they revolve around an arts performing center. Whether it's, we open up that grand hall back to its former glory, and it's used, one person, like a black box they call it, and people can bring in their productions. So whether it's you have a comedy night on Thursday, then the next day you reset, have a rock concert, and then the staging and the stands fold back into the walls, and it's open for a banquet hall. So you could have birthdays, even a wedding, anniversaries, all in a nice historic building.
Wonderful, thank you. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a side elevation of the town hall. So you can see the protruding front entrance and the brownstones, similar to many of the buildings that you may have seen in.
And part of the reuse, they were thinking, we need to open that front entrance, open it up again, get rid of that wall, have the steps go right up into the building to welcome people. Because when you go in that front entrance, it's like two stairwells on each side. It's very grand and it's pretty.
Next slide, please. Here's a side entrance, and the only thing that we can see over here is the new electronic monitoring, since it is a police station now, so that we can see the grand tree that's there. And another historic element of the property of the town hall is the 20-mile marker.
That's right.
Next slide, please. So here it is. It's a 20-mile marker. It's been with the town since 1740, and it marks a 20-mile distance from Boston. And as you can see on the slide, we also have the Walpole class of 1974, and I think they buried a
time capsule. Yes, and we do have a list of objects in it, so we have to also be cognizant of that. We need to protect that, and it's interesting. It's history of Walpole.
Okay, thank you. What else do we have in the town hall? We have the idea that it's been used by many groups, and it functioned for a long time as part of the town government. And the evolution and the expansion of Walpole, a lot of those big events have taken place there. Next slide. So this is the rear of the building where you'd enter the police station, and there's 3 arched bays, as you can see there, and those were originally carded entrances for fire apparatus, as I've been told, and the single door you see on in the middle wasn't there. They were able to pull the horse-driven carts out to fight fires. As you can read the history of Walpole, there's been a number of fires, and
that's right.
I think there was a couple of fires in the building, from what I've been told. But next slide.
These are the original cells that are on the ground floor, and they have been kept. That's the original cells. And right now, I think one of the sergeants or detectives, that's his office, so they kind of kid about it at the station.
Okay. Next slide, please.
That's the ground floor. Those are the cells that are being used today. So there's been a lot of breaking up of the building and walls installed, and so that's what also has to be looked at, whether we, got the building reformatted, and all that, needs to be looked into, whether we need to mitigate any asbestos or anything like that has to be taken care of.
Now, have they looked at that?
We're in the process. That right now we're about at that process, doing a assessment of the building. We do know that the plumbing, electrical has to be updated. Sprinkler systems. The elevator that exists now is not ADA compliant. So that's going to have to also be looked at. And if the building, depending on the use, all that has to be brought up to standard.
All right, next slide, please. What do we see here,
So that's the front entrance, what I was talking about. When you come in, you can see the 2 stairwells on either side. And those stairwells originally went up into the Great Hall. Right now, they've put a drop ceiling in, so it's all cut up and just temporary walls and things that have been there.
All right, thank you. Next.
Those actually are the Civil War plaques on either side of the doorway there. And that doorway right now leads into some offices the police are using. I think originally on that floor was the selectman's office.
As I understand, there's 2 fireplaces
Yes,
flanking
there is.
on
That's right.
each side.
I think the chief's office is on the right and then the other side. Yes.
Next slide, please.
There they are.
So here are the fireplaces, and what's functioning now is the chief's offices, and as
Yeah.
Christine was describing, the drop ceilings are evident there. Next slide.
That's just a detail of the woodwork that is evident.
It's amazing the craftsmanship
It
that
is.
was done on the original town hall. As I understood, somebody hand wrote a set of descriptions of what the town wanted for the town hall and gave it to the architect. Interesting note that when I was doing some research on another topic, we found out that the architect was also responsible for, after town hall, he was responsible for building and designing the Lewis Castle in Walpole. So if I was to have to identify 3 or 4 major buildings in the town, one would be the town hall, 2 would be the Lewis Castle, and 3 probably would have been the Indian Estate, but
True.
that's unfortunately no
Yes.
longer with us.
That's right.
So we hope to be able to protect and preserve these buildings.
Yes.
And the difficulty now is that we don't have a clear picture of what its use is going to be.
Right.
But we hope that the people in town have the foresight to understand that these are the entities of a town that generate interest and favorability about being in a
Right.
local town.
And with all the new construction coming downtown, with the new apartments and condominiums being built, I mean, one of the ideas is the Cultural Arts Center, which would be awesome because people can walk there and then walk home.
Wonderful.
And then it would help downtown also as far as restaurants and just bringing foot traffic and business to downtown.
Okay. So a little historical perspective I'd like to identify is that Walpole's been fighting some battles to get buildings and the downtown taken care of. It took a long time to get the library done. And if I can tell you there's one building that gets used more than any other building in Walpole, it's the library. The library passed by 8 votes. It took the former director probably 10 years working on the development of a totally green library, and it's used and open every night of the year almost, and the response to the library has been phenomenal. People from all over who've come and spoke at the events that I see always talk about how what a wonderful spot it is to come to. So right downtown we have those 3 buildings. We have the library, we have Blackburn Hall,
That's right.
and the town hall.
And as the reuse committee is looking at the town hall as part of the whole center, it's not just it by itself. I mean, we'd love to see some kind of incorporation of Blackburn Hall in the library, to keep almost like a flow, like a park, where you just go from one building to the other. So they all connect, they can all have different programming that relate to each other. And Mr. Pilar, our chairman on the reuse committee, is very much focused on that, just revitalizing the whole downtown. This doesn't stand by itself; it's part of the whole downtown.
It's one of those things. I think back to some of the major events that happened in Walpole. One of them was there was some talk about the sludge dump coming to Walpole years ago, and I couldn't imagine it. I mean, how do you pick our town?
Right.
We had 3 tracts of land that were larger than 75 acres. And a local committee in the town fought the state
Right.
for a number of years, and there's no sludge dump in Walpole.
Joanne Muty was very.
She was,
She was
spearheading
very-
that and
yes,
did a
she
great
did.
job.
She did
and
do a great job.
we have her to thank for
Yes, we do.
something not happening in Walpole.
This is when I worked for the Walpole Times, the photographer. I did cover all those stories, so I got a different, unique perspective on everything that was going on.
Right.
A
couple other local things in the regional area. Folks were identifying that Fenway Park was antiquated, not up to standards, the smallest park in the league. And a new committee, a new group came in there in ownership. And what do we see? A sparkling gem. We see the green monster and people who have thought of things out of the box and in a different way, and the reuse. And it's been closing off streets, and it's been a wonderful family event and a place to take and host all kinds of other events, not just baseball. We see concerts and weddings and
Right.
marriage proposals and all kinds of things. So
Another interesting idea for a town hall was collaborating with a art school, music art school in Boston, having like a South campus, because we are so close to commuter rail. And one of Mr. Horowitz, it was, he brought that idea to the reuse committee, and collaborating with them, where they can have a performing arts area. You can have rehearsing, build rooms and rehearsal rooms, I should say.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that we also know that when Walpole Footlighters didn't have a place to be, the Lewis family barn became the epicenter of social and cultural events. And the barn was rehabbed by George Arthur Plimpton, and he graciously allowed the Walpole Footlighters to use it for a number of years, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm guessing seeing the barn there used in that context.
Right. Huh.
So we hope that the reuse committee can take a good look at coming up with some other.
Oh, sure, and public, they're always welcome. We're always, and if we have great volunteers, we had a volunteer who's an architect in Walpole who came and did the existing conditions, because we have no plans of how it exists today.
Next slide, please. So what you're looking at here is the second floor heading up to the attic. It's the extended wooden staircase going up to the third floor, which, Christine, is that the balcony?
It is the balcony, and that's where you can see the temporary ceiling. You can see that, and the police actually have all their antennas up there, and that's where the firing range was. So.
On the third floor.
Third floor.
Second floor. Okay.
Well,
Next slide.
it's the attic floor. Yes.
Attic floor. Okay. So here we are. A dual look at the left side, right side of the stairs going up toward the attic. Next slide.
Okay, so this is the attic, and you can see how the windows are cut in half, because that ceiling was not there. That was the grand hall.
Hallway. Okay.
And
So it's
you can
two-story or?
I think they said it was 40 or 45 feet tall. Is that
High.
so high? It was
Wow.
very high.
Wow.
I don't know,
Okay.
that might be off.
Okay.
I don't have my notes.
All right.
But it was very high, yes.
And
And
you
that's, I mean, you can imagine, imagine if we can get that back to how it looked before, and you have a wedding there or anniversary party. It would just be something different. And it could, accommodate more people than, say, a smaller hall that we have in Walpole.
All right. Next slide.
This shows some detail. I know if you look at the circular part there, that's where the gas fittings were for the lighting.
So originally it was gas light,
Yes, yeah.
and then it got reused into electrical.
Yeah, and you can see some of the antennas there on the left-hand corner there. You can see them sticking up.
I'm still impressed by the truss work there. I mean, those
Yes.
are, large, beautiful structures that we wouldn't make nowadays in a building.
No,
We
and it'd be
wouldn't-
great. I mean, it's going to take a lot of effort and time and commitment to get this, restored back to original, but it's an idea.
That's a great idea. Next.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So
Attic
there's,
gas
there's our
light.
detail
Yeah.
right here after we
Piping and then
describe
wired
that.
for electrical lighting. Yep.
All right, next.
Just the other side of the attic.
Next. So this is more of the detail of the elaborate woodwork that was here. Interesting to note that John Colburn was the Walpole builder. And those of you who remember, Colburn was part of the Colburn family, was a large part of Walpole. And one of the Colburn's relatives was the maker of the mathematics books years ago
Didn't know that.
we found off. So it's a local builder. Local folks identified what we wanted as town people, and they developed all the funds to pay for the town hall.
Sure.
In addition, the town people raised separate funds for the bell and the clock tower.
Right. It's interesting you talk about funds. The reuse committee is very motivated and dedicated to not having this cost the taxpayer. We need to figure out a way that we can do this without burdening the taxpayers. I mean, everyone has enough bills to pay, and we really, that's one of the focuses.
Oh, great. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about the Patriots at one point were ready to leave Walpole, and you know, the owner were focused on having the taxpayers build them a stadium like we hear in other towns, and lo and behold, that that didn't happen. They didn't leave, and now we have a gem of a football team right in our local backyard here.
Right.
Next slide.
We still have
More of the details of the woodwork and the craftsmanship presented to you in the town hall. Next.
Oh, this is the E. Howard and Company of Boston, Mass. Clockworks. This clock and bell, which is missing, was donated by the Walpole residents in 1881, and it cost was $874, which is interesting. The clock mechanism is located in the tower and is fully functional today. And someone has to go up there and wind the clock. I don't know how often, but they do to keep it running.
All right. I think Roger Turner told me that it runs on a weekly basis, so once a week somebody has to go up and do that. What a job.
Yep.
Next slide, folks.
And it's just another aerial placing the town hall, how it, it is a main focus of downtown. And another challenge will be the parking, since the new fire station is a little larger and is closer to the building now. It's, we looking at the parking as a whole. I mean, I know parking right now is a challenge for the MBTA commuter rail users, because they did close some of those lots for the apartments. So.
Well, once the police station moves out to South Street and we get the construction workers leave and the new town fire department is completed, that should ease the burden.
We hope so.
And give us enough parking for...
and they're looking, I know that the selectmen are looking at other options too, as far as helping out with the commuter parking.
Good.
So.
Next slide. Great aerial view of the town hall to see what it was like.
And
it's a slate roof.
Yeah, and you can see how close it is related to Blackburn. So to have a flow going from building to building would be great. If they're in conjunction, different programs going on at the same time or related.
I've seen that the Blackburn Hall is used on a regular basis by the Recreation Department for a number of events, and historically that's been a fabric of the town. Next slide.
Well, interesting enough, the Blackburn Hall, the back there mirrored the other side with the steps, so there used to be steps there, and that was an entrance, and you could walk
right through?
Right through.
Wow, wow. That's a great view of a classic building. Next.
And there's our town hall, Christmas, the Santa out there.
He's out there today.
Yeah, he is out there
as
today.
We can see in a nighttime view looking up at the tower. Next slide.
And John Anderson took this photo. He's the Historical Society. And you can see the rainbow there.
We're still looking for the pot of gold now to fund the next 100 years of what's going to happen with Town Hall.
Yes.
We sincerely hope that the people in Walpole support the generation of a new use for the Town Hall, and let's not be stymied by dollars and other things. We can always raise funds and come up with alternative ways to use and display the building so that we have a vibrant downtown.
And the reuse committee would love to see anyone come down, join us at our meetings. They're always posted. We do have a website on the town's website. You can just click on our link, the reuse committee, and you can see, I think our past minutes are up there also if people want to see what's been done so far. And join us. Yeah, it'd be great to have the more people involved, the better.
Next slide. So as we summarized, we're here to support the reuse committee. There's our town hall symbol, 1724 when we were incorporated. The town seal is right there as evident, which was developed by one of the Walpole High School students years ago. So that's all there for us as part of the history. We hope you enjoyed the discussion today. Christine, thank you for coming in.
No problem. I have one more thing though. As far as timeline, the reuse committee would like to have a final presentation to the selectmen, I believe it's in April 2018, and then final presentation to town meeting for the spring town meeting, because the police will be moving out spring 2018. So
Great.
come down and join us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good night.